Alright, so that should be working. Sorry guys for the original mess up. I have no idea what the heck just happened. Uh, I've been I've been changing settings with my Streamlabs software, and it's just been going haywire the entire time. So I have no idea what's wrong with it. Can you guys hear me right now? We're just gonna be setting up, waiting for some more people to join, so that we can get this started. Make sure that stuff is closed so I don't have my volume looping. Alright, so can you guys hear me? Cool. Just so you guys know, I will say, for some odd, bizarre reason, literally no clue why, at some point in the stream, it's going to crash, alright? You are going to need to refresh your game. Not your game, your stream, alright? I literally do not know when this will happen. I do not know where it'll happen. Well, it'll happen on YouTube, but I will not know when it will happen. So you guys are going to need to refresh your stream the second it happens. I have no clue why it happens. I don't know if this happens to other YouTube streamers, but all I know is that it seems to be a consistent thing that happens to just my channel in general. And I have a good internet connection, just no clue why it happens, so be prepared for that. Anyway, we are going to be ranking every D&D class. I had some other ideas for other stuff, like ranking traps, ranking monsters, ranking other stuff, but one of the most highly controversial things that I have on my channel at the moment is my D&D class tier list. And I think it's because a lot of people were upset that I didn't put their favorite class in S tier, even though for the most part I don't think that all of them deserve to be in S tier. This game was designed by humans, and unless our benevolent overlords come and design a game literally fit for the gods, nothing will be balanced to perfection. Things will always have some issues and errors and some things that just make playing certain classes not as fun or just not as intuitive. So today we're going to be ranking all of the classes. You guys are going to be helping me rank all of the classes so that I can finally pretend that I did not have a part in this. You guys are going to be doing all the work for me, and at that point, maybe I'll upload this to YouTube later so that we can have a verified, this is the D&D tier list. This is what the community thinks all of the classes have been ranked. I'll give a few opinions here and there on where I believe they should go. We're going to be ranking them on whether or not they're easy to just jump in and play, how simple they are to actually learn and figure out as a character, other stuff like that, just how strong the class is in general. That's going to be the biggest factor, just how good the class is, which is why we have in S always good and D rarely good. Basically, we're going to be ranking them on how good the class is in pretty much any circumstance, for when a noob is picking up the class, for when a veteran is picking up the class, all the different subclasses and stuff like that. Felix, Bard, and Cleric are in S tier. Honestly, I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's not my opinion to judge at this point. It was my opinion to judge in the last D&D tier list video, but not in this one. So yeah, let me see. Is there anything else that I wanted to add before we get into this? Oh yeah, I wanted to test the voting poll, just to make sure that voting is actually working. So let's just test this real quick. I'm gonna open up a poll. This should work, and if it doesn't, then I'm going to have to fix it. Let's see. Alright, so the poll is opened. You guys are gonna have to cut me some slack here. It was working last stream, and if it's not working now, I have literally no clue why it would be doing that. Let's see. Yeah, so this is the preparation that I need to do beforehand. Downside is, I can't test whether or not the polls are working. Wait, how the heck are you guys voting? There's nothing on the screen. How do you guys know what to vote for? What the heck? You guys are adding votes to the poll that's not even... Oh, whatever. I'm still figuring it out. You guys already know what to do. A lot of you are already voting S. I think it's just like your casual messages that are changing the actual poll. Oh well. Let's see. So, in order to add a poll to our streams, Just give me a second so I can figure it out. Let's see. This is the most obnoxious part of running any stream, the polls. I have no idea how Streamlabs OBS works in regards to this. I'm just going off of a whim. I'm gonna figure it out, don't worry. Let's see. Yeah, so this will just be the little part that you guys have to wait for. It was working last stream, not too sure why it may be causing some issues now. Alright. So that's set up. It's gonna be a little bit of this, 1 second. If we don't have a poll working, we literally cannot rank the tier list, so this is gonna be the most important part. Like a brief intermission. Okay, what are you guys saying? Maybe one of you guys know exactly how to fix this. Oh, did Streamlabs actually message it in the chat? Cool, cool. I wanted it to be shown up on the actual screen too, so that when we're actually voting, if I do decide to publish this on YouTube eventually, anyone who wasn't able to catch the stream can actually check to see which ones are being voted on and which theme. So yeah, it looks like the poll is actually working in the chat, but nothing's actually showing up on the screen. So let me make sure things are going to be working from here on out. Let's add a new source. We're going to make it the poll. If I can find it. So yeah, that's definitely working. Display capture input. Yeah, once I get this done, the actual voting part is going to be a whole lot easier. It's just a pain in the neck on how the whole voting thing works. And Streamlabs, from the looks of it, just recently changed and messed up all their settings. So this is gonna be an ordeal for me. Alright, chat box. That's not there. That's not it. That's not it. Alright. There we go. Cool. So now we have a ranking thing. Yay! Where do I want to put it? This thing is huge. Alright. I'm not too sure how easy that is to see. It's quite pixelated on my end. Let's put it right here. Here, maybe. Here. Here. I don't know where I want to put it. Here. There. That's good. No. That's fine, that's fine. Alright, right there. Here. Right there. I want to put it somewhere nice. Alright, right in the middle. Perfect. Cool. We have it. That's all we need. Now let me open up the chat so I can read along with you guys. Bam. And we are finally ready. Dang, that was a lot of work. Alright, so we have our poll. We have our participants. And now we can finally get to ranking every single D&D class. So, let's get right on to it. We're starting with Fighter. So, let's close this original poll real quick so you guys can stop voting on everything. Turn that off. Alright, cool. S tier was voted the highest by a long shot, so I can only imagine the foreshadowing that'll come from every other class moving forward. Now let's move on. So, first off guys, we're going Fighter. Now, where does fighter belong? Who knows? I'm gonna open up the poll and we'll begin to vote. Complete. Let's start this up again. Alright, so I got 4 minutes to describe exactly how I feel about fighter. So, fighter, super basic, but that's a good thing, alright? It's not a bad thing at all. Fighter is an incredibly simplistic class to play. It is incredibly effective at doing its job, which is fighting. You can be a ranged fighter. You can be a fighter, melee boy. It's super good. Fighters in D&D get the most extra attacks out of any other class in the game. I'm not too sure how much it is. I believe it's around 4 or 5. But regardless, the fact that fighter can attack around 4 or 5 times every round if they're a high enough level just shows how strong it is as a class that can just do some good base damage and get it done well. Fighters are... well, they get proficiency with every weapon, they get proficiency with every armor, which means that it doesn't really matter what your DM throws at you. If it's a magical item, there's a good chance that you'll be able to wield it and wield it effectively. Now, there's really no reason to go either strength or dexterity. Well, there's no reason to go both on a fighter, alright? So, if you're going a strength-based fighter, there's really no reason you want to get dexterity. Or if you're going a dex-based fighter, there's really no reason to get strength. It's a lot different than with barbarians, because I believe they do use dexterity for a few of their abilities, but with fighter, it's not that necessary. What else do I want to add? Second Wind, pretty strong. They lack the ability to resist a lot of damage types the Barbarian usually gets, and I'm comparing them to Barbarian because Barbarian and Fighter are really close together. Two really solid melee frontliners, flavored a little bit differently. Fighter is more of the consistent damage dealer. They get to wear armor as opposed to Barbarians who lose a few of their special traits when they're wearing armor. So that's a plus there. They don't really have to spec, and they don't really need to worry about their ability scores as much. Just a basic overall unit. How much longer is in this poll? Alright, we got another minute and a half. Let me keep that open just so I know what the heck is going on. Bam. Alright. Cool. So, what else is good with Fighter? Fighter is incredibly powerful at early stages of the game. If you make a Fighter, levels 1 through 10, you are going to be annihilating everything. Now, the spellcasters haven't really had a chance to sort of jump up and get stronger. Their spells are still pretty generic, pretty basic. They do a lot of minor things, and that's normal for a bunch of lower level spells. But with Fighter, the strongest ability that you have in your arsenal is just the fact that you can always do some good damage, you can always do it right, and doesn't really matter. At any stage of the game, you're going to be killing people the same exact way. Like, my friend who's been playing a paladin named Aces Deckard, he's been playing a paladin, but the stance still stands, that he's swinging around a blade, and from the beginning of the game till level 17, where we are now, it has always been pretty much the same thing. Now, yeah, that is a paladin, but the point still stands that fighters and just any class that uses a blade and uses it consistently like that is going to be doing pretty much the same thing from the start of the game till the end. And that's the great thing about it. It's just the consistency that comes with it. So yeah, Fighter, really basic, that makes it good. Simple, straight to the point, really noob friendly. Veterans can even get a kick out of it, but usually at that point it's more homebrew or UA sort of content, because Fighter in itself can be a bit plain, and yeah, stuff like that. Alright, cool. So, Fighter, you guys decided to put it in B. I think that's solid. A really good fit between always being a good top-tier pick and being less so. Cool, cool. Let's lower the time that it takes. So it's gonna be 3 minutes now. Just so I don't have to talk for as long. 180 seconds. Nice. Alright, next, boys. We're going Warlock. Let's start this up. There we go. That should have worked. Alright, so this is how I feel about Warlock. And just so you guys know, we're not just basing this around what the class offers generically, alright? So, base Warlock, definitely a little on the underpowered side. I'm not saying it's horrible. I'm saying it's just a little bit underpowered. Eldritch Invocations, the way that you are able to balance out and strengthen, customize your Eldritch Blasts, super cool, super neat. I feel as though, however, some of the Eldritch Invocations make you feel like if you don't pick them up, you're being less powerful than you should be. I don't think there's enough customization in the Eldritch Invocations, even though there are a ton of them. I still don't think there are enough. For a class feature like that, I don't feel like there's enough Eldritch Invocations to really balance out that whole ordeal. And for that part, I believe a lot of homebrew needs to be used on both the Warlock's base kit to make it more fun, more viable, more interesting to play. And along with that, the whole idea that you get your power from an Eldritch abomination like Cthulhu or a devil or just a celestial, fey creatures, that can be really cool. And if your DM is actually a pretty experienced dungeon master and they know how warlocks play, you'll know that the whole idea of having a pact with another creature can be a really, really cool roleplay narrative. In fact, on most occasions, I feel like if you're not rewarding your warlock for having this patron deal, for giving them this ability to talk or experience the game with this other patron, then that's where you're limiting the Warlock. The Warlock gets its power off of the Dungeon Master, not from its class, which is a big differentiator. Now, as you can see, S tier is always good. Like, you aren't always going to have a Dungeon Master that gives you that luxury, which is why I don't believe that Warlock should really be an S tier, per se. But yeah, if you have a good Dungeon Master, I'd say maybe around A or B tier. With Dungeon Masters that are a little bit new to the game or aren't particularly fond of the whole idea of giving you free stuff just because you chose Warlock, blah blah blah. C, maybe even D tier. It's really up to your Dungeon Master at that point. Warlock fluctuates heavily based on the type of person it is that's being your Dungeon Master. Alright. Is there anything else that I wanted to add? Oh yeah, the whole spell slots ordeal. Yeah, warlocks only get a few spell slots per, well, just in general. The upside is that they get to cast their spell slots at the highest level. The downside is they don't get a whole lot of spell slots, which makes a lot of spells in D&D just flat out garbage, and other ones just flat out overpowered. The fact that you don't get a choice is what makes it really difficult. Hey, Goldtooth. It's sad, really, unless you're playing a wizard or strength build character. All the magical items in the game are completely useless to you because only wizard and strength-based warriors get all the good stuff. I would say that's true in a sense. Also, you guys voted warlock for B, so solid. Fighter and warlock seem to be in the same niche, so that's good. But yeah, when it comes to magical items in the game, yeah, a lot of them are catering towards those martial classes, because if you think about it, martial classes don't get the same luxuries, don't get the same creative outlook on life that many of the spellcasters do. So it helps them be a bit more creative and customize themselves. Anyway, we're going to Paladin! So something tells me I know where Paladin is going to fall on this list. Alright. Next poll, Paladin. What makes a Paladin good? Paladins are a mix between a martial class and a support class. Why is that good? Because martial classes are some of the best frontline damage dealers in the game, and support classes are some of the best classes in the game, in my opinion. Cleric is, I believe, mutually agreed to be one of the best and most broken base classes in Dungeons & Dragons, trying to make sure that people who play the support role feel empowered, feel useful, and also don't feel required to fill that healer support role all the time. They can also do some damage dealing spells, blah blah blah. Paladins, they can use their spell slots to heal people, to protect people, to aid people, to kill people. Paladins get those divine smites. They are so good. You don't understand. And even then, you don't even need to prepare a smite in order to do a divine smite. Like, some smites require spell slots. Well, all smites require spell slots. But divine smite is the strongest, most broken ability in my opinion, in any class feature. And it can get so strong depending on what campaign type your DM is playing. So like if you're playing a heavy devil and demon filled campaign or a heavy undead themed campaign, Divine Smite gets even stronger, which is insane. You don't understand how strong that can be. They get extra attacks so they can keep swinging. They get burst potential with their smite abilities. They can enhance their smites with status effects, which is insane. Not only that, but, and I say but, there are some items in the game that are specifically designed to cater to paladins. Like, I forget its name, the Dawnbringer, the Earthbringer, I don't remember. All I know is, if you're a high enough level paladin, that item gets even stronger than it should be, which is, which just goes to show that paladin, in my opinion, is Wizards of the Coast's like child, like their baby. They coddle that little class so nicely. Some of the higher level abilities that the paladin gets even allows them to fly, to my knowledge. The aura is so strong, and at that point, you the party members pretty much don't need to worry about failing any saving throws anymore. The chances of them failing are so low that it doesn't matter anymore. They can go dex builds, they can go strength builds. They have to spec into charisma, which is a little bit of an off place, and yeah. So in that regard, they have to stretch themselves out, like strength for their weapon, charisma for their spell casting, constitution just to be bulky and strong in the front lines. So they have to spread themselves out a little bit, which I think is their biggest downfall. But aside from that, yeah, they're a really solid base class. All right, so hey, nice. Looks like you guys sort of understand the power of the paladin. We're pretty close to S, but it doesn't seem like, well, some of you guys are being pretty conservative, which is fine, because in, like I said, devils and demons and undead are when the paladin gets their strongest, and if you're not fighting those creatures, it can be a little bit more problematic. And seeing as the smite feature is one of the paladin's strongest aspects, you can't always get that power online. So yeah, I agree with A. Nice. Also, Goldtooth. I'm right about dex builds. Oh, what about the dex builds? Like the rogue or the druid. Barely any magical items that are good. Yeah, I understand that idea, that aspect, but just so you know, D&D is a really creative game. And I don't want to just balance these these classes off of their pure ability, their pure class potential, because a lot of DMs and a lot of players don't like to play specifically by the player's handbook and the core rulebooks. So we gotta take into consideration the dungeon masters involved, and where they would like to sort of place everything, what they'd like to do, and the items they want to bring in. So yeah, you can have homebrewed items for those classes. It's not that big of a deal. The problem comes with, like, everything else that's involved. Also, give me 1 second, guys. It's pretty cold in this room. I'm gonna lower my air conditioning real quick. Alright, there we go. Now that I think about it, that was probably the first time I've ever actually gotten up from a stream. If only for a second. I had broken my world record. Alright, Ranger! This one's gonna be a bit controversial, but I'll try my best to describe why I don't believe it's as bad as everyone takes it for. Ranger, what do I think is good about it? The Gloomstalker subclass. The Gloomstalker subclass is one of the best features out of any class in D&D. You can go invisible in dim light or darkness, and creatures with blind sight can't even see you. Gloomstalker is one of the best subclasses in D&D, in my opinion. Pretty solid. However, if you're not going a Gloomstalker, if you're not playing the Revised Ranger, which we're not counting, this is not the Revised Ranger, this is the normal Ranger, then it's very, very situational. First of all, you have to work with your DM. Where's the setting? Is it in a forest? Is it in Antarctica? Are we in the snowy north? Are we in the desert south? I need to know this, otherwise my ranger is going to be absolutely garbage. Favorite terrain? You have to know where the campaign is going to be taking place for the majority of the game. You can get more favorite terrains, I believe. Although, it's just not that good. Like, you can forage for more food, right? In your favorite terrain, you can move faster. But who cares about that? Maybe in some campaigns, yes, that can be pretty important. And maybe Ranger in those games could be better. But in most normal campaigns, why do you care about foraging for food? Why do you care about moving faster through these terrains? Like, if you don't bring a ranger to the game, the Dungeon Master is going to help the party make their way from one place or the other. Time constraints aren't going to be as severe. And if you don't bring a ranger to the game, basically you lower the difficulty of the campaign in general. Because now the Dungeon Master, if they're sort of competent and know why the ranger is good and what makes them good, they're going to have to force the party to spend a lot more time on travel and thinking about things, like detailing things, which is just not that much fun. You can bring rations, you can forage for food on your own with like a survival check or something. You don't need a ranger to forage for your food. Later on in the game, it's not going to be important at all. Bags of holding, you can bring 500 pounds of food that will never spoil. Blah, blah, blah. It's like Ranger, it's sitting in that niche spot. It can be good, and Gloomstalker's invisibility trait and just general abilities can be really good. Favorite enemy can be good, but only when they pop up in the game and never any other time. So in that regard, Ranger is like that weird class that only works when the stars align, which is the weirdest thing. And yeah, I would maybe put it around C or D. Like, the majority of you guys seem to agree in that situation. I think it's rarely good, and yeah, that's where we'll end it. It's complete. Yep, you guys say D tier, so we're putting in D tier. Yeah, it's rarely good. Which is pretty disappointing. I'm not too sure about Revised Ranger. I haven't really looked into it, but I believe they fixed some of that monotony and try to make sure that Ranger can be more viable in like a given situation, given scenario. All right, cool. Next up on the list, we're at Bard. Now, here's the one that I got the most controversy for in my last video. I think it's because I put Bard a little too low than you guys wanted me to. So, what do I think is good about Bard? Healing, support magic, healing, being the face of the party so that you can actually get through conversations and dialogue without having someone completely mess it up because their charisma is like a -5. Magic that can help you in said conversations, bardic inspiration so you succeed more often on checks. Yeah, a bunch of cool stuff like that. What do I think is a bit on the iffy side of Bard? Well, the iffy side is they don't have a whole lot of really strong spells off the bat that can do damage, so they aren't good damage dealers. When you think of support, a lot of people don't believe that like actual damaging spells can count as support, but think about it like this. If you can damage your ally, well, your enemies to the point where they don't want to fight anymore, then you did your job as a support. So being a support can also mean dealing damage to the enemy lines, which Bard can't really do because the Bard spell list doesn't really have a whole lot of actual damaging spells. You're gonna have to go, College of Lore in order to get those spells, which can work, and you can get those abilities, but in that sense, no, you don't get them. Healing spells, super good. If you keep healing an ally with, like, Healing Word, just keep popping them back up from death at 1 or 2 hit points. They can keep fighting, it's super good. Song of Rest. Incredibly forgettable. Almost no one cares to remember about Song of Rest. It's not that big of a deal because when you're taking a rest anyway, you just want to expend all your hit dice. So having a few extra hit dice to spend isn't that big of a deal when you almost always go back up to full after every rest. Not the biggest deal. Bards gets some pretty cool support magic. I believe they share a lot of similarities with Cleric in that regard. But what makes... Let me see real quick. I don't play enough Bard, honestly. Let me take a look at exactly what makes them good. They get expertise, alright? So basically, You're a rogue, except you're a support rogue. And you can understand why that's so strong, because rogue is already, in my opinion, one of the stronger classes in the game. And paladin, oh no, not paladin, a cleric is one of the best support classes in the game. So if you mix both of them together, you get this sort of supportish rogue that is so powerful. Which I believe is one of the selling points when it comes to this class. So yeah, cool. Looks like a lot of you agree. Bard is one of the stronger classes in the game. It is S tier. It is always good. Cool. I wouldn't expect it to be anywhere else. So yeah, I believe last time I put Bard in maybe B tier. I can't remember. So yeah, it looks like you guys unanimously agree Bard belongs in S tier. Okay, cool. We're at Barbarian. What do I believe is good about Barbarian, and what do I think is bad about it? I don't believe there's pretty much anything that's bad about Barbarian as a class. Every single time I make a melee bruiser character, I think about it like, wait, alright, do I want to make a fighter and be basic and a bit simplistic? Or do I want to be a Barbarian and get whatever my class features are, which can drastically change the way I can play my game? What is it? The frenzy ability. Let me take a look real quick. Barbarian. Their subclasses. What the heck are they? Alright, you got Battle Rager, Berserker, Ancestral Guardian, Storm Herald, Totem Warrior, Zealot? I don't know how to pronounce that. Regardless, you got a few. Now, I don't think there are as many as Fighter, but here's the thing. The flavor is so good with this class. Each one changes the way that you view yourself as a barbarian. And one of them is better than all the rest, in my opinion. If you just want to make a character that never dies, then you go ahead and you make yourself a Totem Warrior Barbarian. You have resistance to every damage type in D&D except for Psychic, but when you get hit by Psychic, right? So, resistance to every type. How are you supposed to kill that thing? It's impossible. Rage makes you so impossibly strong. Unarmored defense. You don't even need to wear armor. You don't even need it. Which means you don't even have to worry about magical gear later on in the future. Perhaps you can put it on, but you don't need to. Hey, Chaos Sorcerer's best class. Vampire's worst race. I disagree on that second part. I guess we'll see about Sorcerers. But yeah, Primal Path. No, Danger Sense. I believe that helps with dex saves. Dex saves are pretty dangerous. If you fail a dex save, you can pretty much imagine that your character may or may not die. Those saves are deadly, like a giant hammer about to crush your skull, and you need to avoid that. Dex save. Barbarians never get hurt. What else do they get? Some other classes, well, pretty much every single one of the subclasses for Barbarian helps flavor their rage ability, and in that sense, when you're raging, you are almost unkillable. And the more levels you pick up in Barbarian, the stronger that becomes. Because you don't need to wear armor, you don't have to worry about magical items and stuff like that. So you are even more relevant than you should be. In the fact that you don't need to worry about the Dungeon Master giving you magical items to stay powerful and in the now. Brutal critical, stronger crits. Downside is you need to go into other classes to sort of make that stronger, but aside from that, it's pretty strong generically. One big downside that I want to add before we wrap this up, so you guys got a little more time to vote. Barbarians don't get as many attacks on average as Fighter, which, if you think about it, balances them out, but also makes it so you're rolling less dice on the table. And who the heck wants to play a class, a martial class, so to say, that doesn't get to roll a ton of dice on the table? That is half the fun of being a martial class. And the fact that barbarians, for the most part, I think, only get to roll around 2 or 3 dice when they make their attacks, really hurts the fun of playing the class. Like Fighter, 4 or 5 attacks, woo, 5 or 4 d20s. Rogue, sneak attack, 8,000 D6 sneak attack dice rolling on the table. You hear all of those noises. It's incredible. And the mere fact that Barbarian doesn't get to hear all of those clickety-clackety dice definitely lowers it on my fun table when ranking all of this stuff. Oh, yeah, the Totem Bear / Druid combo. That's pretty strong, multi-classing, etc. I think Barbarian can be good if you try to multi-class it, but unlike Fighter, it's a little bit more specific. Anyway, bam! We got our boy Barbarian in A tier, I believe. I have no idea why I didn't take a look at the poll before I closed it. But yeah, from the looks of it, I think it was at A tier where we left it off. So, yes, A tier. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. I'll fix it in the editing later. But I believe it was A tier. D was the most voted option? What? Wait, D was the most voted option for that one? Huh? It's saying in Streamlabs, D was the most voted option. Guys, did you break the poll? What the heck? What did you do? Why is it saying that Barbarian, the most voted one for Barbarian was D? Maybe that's for an older one. I think that was for Ranger. But I don't think it was for Barbarian. Anyway, we're going to the next one. Next. I don't know why. Whatever. Bam. Next class. And I'll fix it if I see Streamlabs getting weird with me. Actually, wait. I can go back and watch watch exactly what it was. Maybe. YouTube, please. Okay, I'm gonna go back. 1 second. Bam. Close that. Let's see. Where did we finish with Barbarian? I'm just making sure so that it looks good and solid and all that good stuff. Oh yeah, I can't check. Oh well, you guys can tell me. Next. The poll is already going, and why did I start the next poll? I'm so small brain. I'm sorry. Alright. The next poll. You guys are already voting and we haven't even started. Monk! I got 2 minutes to describe it. What do I think is good about Monk? You don't need to worry about having weapons. You don't need to worry about having armor. You can walk on water. You can walk on walls. So much utility, so much movement. It's amazing. Hey, Streamlabs counting your votes for Bard. Yeah, Bard S tier. I guess everyone was right on that regard. But yeah, Monk, I do believe your fists aren't as strong as murder enchanted bladed weapons. That's for a fact. But here's the thing. Monks, to my knowledge, aren't at their strongest when they're only using their weapon, like only using their fists. They're so much stronger when you have a weapon to go with them. A magical quarterstaff, a magical glaive, stuff like that. It can be really cool, really strong. So when you think of a monk, you shouldn't always just be thinking double puncher boy, fist style, going out, getting kills, bloody knuckles, stuff like that. No. For the most part, what makes a monk good is the fact that they can use not only their fists, but also a few specific weapons that they've trained themselves to master, and that in my opinion is what makes them pretty good. They can fight with both their hands if they really need to, but they don't need to do that. All right. What else do I want to add with this? I think I've looked up a few actual polls online beforehand just about Monk, because I was curious to see what the majority of the public thought about the class as well. And the majority of people say it's actually a bit underpowered when it comes to like flat damage output and like frontline potential. It doesn't have that health, that bulkiness that the other classes have in their class kits. So it's a little bit more specific and difficult in that regard, but still, Monk can be a pretty valued option. It can be pretty interesting flavor-wise. Sadly enough, though, I don't think I've had any players in my games who have really brought that up to me and really made a really good flavored Monk. But my hopes are still high. Maybe you guys have something different. So yeah, big thing. that monks don't really need weapons and armors to be good, and when the party has lost all of their gear and they're like in a prison cell or something, you are still viable. You do not need items to be viable as this class, which is the greatest part about being a monk. Alright, cool. 38 votes for B. I agree, honestly. Really good, solid. I think it fits well with Fighter and Warlock. A little bit situational here and there, but it can be flavored properly. Next. We're going off to Artificer. Hey, Christian, thank you. Let me see. Say that magic items, the monk heavily outdamages the fighter and drunken master, makes it the best control unit, and has the best magic item customization. Huh. Yeah, I haven't played a whole lot of Monk, so I wouldn't be too sure on that regard. I think I've only played Monk maybe once or twice. The flavor's cool, and I believe some magic items can work with it quite well. You just need to find a few that work with it. Alright. Why is it still taking us, 4 minutes? It should be 180 seconds. So I don't have to talk for as long. My throat is going to be dead by the end of this. Alright, next. Next poll is up. Should be up. Hopefully. I don't know. Alright. Artificer, what do I think about it? Well, I think that artificers are great as NPCs. I haven't had anyone really bring an artificer to my game. I haven't had a whole lot of chances to see how they work early game, mid game, late game. So I'm gonna have to really rely on you guys for this one because I personally just don't know. However, the whole idea of a class that can create magical items is awesome. Why do I think that's awesome? Because now you have an excuse to say that magical items can be created in your games. Now you have an excuse to have like magical blacksmiths who create items for you. Customization, homebrew. The Artificer class opens up so many really interesting combinations. Whether or not it's a actual player character and you're using the class features, or if it's an NPC in your world, creating items and fixing up things for your party members. All of that stuff is incredibly creative, and I think the fact that the Artificer, I think that's how you pronounce it, the mere fact that it exists opens up so many different doors for both you and your players. If you have one in your game, I believe you can do some pretty crazy stuff like portable holes or bags of holding, I don't remember. And you can create rifts in like space and time by putting both of them inside of each other. So in that regard, it can be pretty strong. It can be pretty broken in that regard, but I think the general consensus is there's just something off with it that makes it a little more underpowered than people would like to lead it on to believe. The idea that you can create magical items, yes, but that doesn't mean that the magical items are strong. They are low-tier magic items. Nothing game-breaking, nothing balance-changing. So yeah, and I think you can create higher, stronger magical items as you level up in the class. But here's the thing. You can get those magical items just by asking your dungeon master if they can put them in the game. Like, if you're not shy about it, like, hey, can you put this item in the game? I'd love it if my character could get it. And almost all the time, the dungeon master will say, oh, cool, let me look at it. And yeah, maybe I can put this in like a treasure chest or something later on in the game. If you would enjoy it, sure thing. So then, your Artificer doesn't have to worry about creating the item, and it would work just like a normal D&D campaign. So in that regard, I'm not too sure what the limitations are with creating an actual item. As I will say again, I haven't been able to really play the class, but in that regard, the fact that you can create magical items, albeit they are low tier magic items, I think adds a lot of flair and is actually quite interesting. Cool. S tier. I didn't think it'd get up that good. Always good? Yeah, I guess for a class that can create magic items, it has a lot of leeway to really flavor it in any way for any campaign, for any dungeon master. And if your dungeon master is like a fickler for giving you actual magical items, that can be so good. Alright, so, Cleric. Where the heck is Cleric going, guys? What do we think about Cleric as a class? I'm curious. Alright, so the votes immediately skyrocket to S and A. I figured as much. Cleric. Cleric is broken. I'm pretty sure the creators of the game. I'm not too sure if what's his name. I should know this. Jeremy Crawford. I'm terrible with names, but yes, I believe some of the developers of the game even went out to say that Cleric was broken as a class. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, the healing, the fact that you get proficiency with so many different weapons and items, the fact that some subclasses give you proficiency with heavy armor, so you can just flat out tank for the group. Support roles, overpowered necromancy spells, healing abilities. The washing machine is now on in the background. Sorry for any noise. Just decided we need to wash laundry at the moment. But yes. Super strong. Damage out of the roof. Healing out of the roof. What else do you want from it? It can do everything. Spirit Guardians. Yes. What is it? Healing Spirit? Healing Spirit. Overpowered. If a DM lets you bring Healing Spirit into the game, then this is going to be the most broken, ungodly class in the entire game. Healing Spirit is one of the strongest spells in actual Dungeons & Dragons history. No clue how it got through with Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Without more testing, it's like they wrote up the spell and like, oh, this is balanced, all right, let's put it in Xanathar's without any play testing whatsoever. Or maybe they did play test it. I have no idea. I feel like they did, but for some reason, no one was smart enough to realize exactly what the spell does or how it works. I didn't even have like any of my players like use it in a game. I just read the spell and I immediately could tell how broken and ungodly it was. Healing Spirit is nerfed? Really? Oh, cool. So yeah, if Healing Spirit is nerfed, then yeah, that's fine. I'm not too sure if it's still like that, or maybe your Dungeon Master nerfed it. I definitely nerfed it in my campaign, and I'm not too sure if it's still like that. But yeah, Healing Spirit. Overpowered and broken. If it's still in the game, it makes Clerics overpowered and broken. What is it? I think they get D10s for their hit dice, but I'm not too sure on that one. No, it's a D8. Alright, so never mind on that regard. But yeah, tons of amazing healing spells. The subclasses make you so strong. Divine Intervention. Godly. It is literally godly. No understatement on that. It is godly. Being able to call upon your deity for aid is insanity. So many crazy things can come out of that. It's basically a smaller version of Wish. Alright, so we got S tier. I agree on that one wholeheartedly. I think, if anything, that'll be the most votes for S tier out of any other class moving forward. S, always good. It is always good. Okay, Druid. Now, what's interesting about Druid? You can turn into a bunch of classes. Well, not a bunch of classes. You can turn into a bunch of animals. It's a little limited, but it can be cool. You can pretend to disguise yourself as an animal, to sneak into places. You don't even have to roll stealth, so long as creatures sort of configure that you'd be there or something of the like. You get a bunch of druidic spells. There's some really good flavor. Almost always you can come from like a forest or a distant land. The snowy north. It is basically Ranger, but cooler. A deeper connection to the animals and wildlife around you. Magic that stems out of that wildlife connection. Some pretty cool flavor with the creatures of the forest. Mayhaps you're going to protect them, blah, blah, blah. The fact that the DM has some stuff to work with. The idea that Druid is just a generally understood class, not just in D&D, but like in fantasy culture regardless, helps it sort of blend in with the rest of the spell casting crowd. I believe both Druid and Sorcerer sit in this like neutral gray area. Like, what the heck? Like, I understand what it might be, but why don't I just play a cleric? Why don't I just play a wizard? Like, I know what those are, so why should I play a druid or a sorcerer? Like, it's more understood in that sense, which is why I'll rather pick wizard or cleric, or maybe even bard. if I've heard about that, of course. But for people who do eventually jump in and try out Druid and try out Sorcerer, they can end up having a pretty fun time. Turning into animals can be pretty fun. Having a bunch of different spells that can assist you with helping animals, seeing through them, becoming them. The flavor is just pretty entertaining, and the subclasses are really interesting as well. Now, I can't say out of experience because I haven't played all those many Druid characters, and in any instance that I have, they haven't gone above, I think, level 2 or 3. So this is mostly my experience with just Dungeons and Dragons in general, and having to write up stuff and sort of study the class. Needless to say, I haven't studied it very much. So in that regard, I'm hoping that you guys sort of know exactly where it belongs, how you feel the class is balanced in comparison to all the other classes, how easy it is for newbies to jump into it, and how fun it can be for veteran players of the game to jump in and play one of these subclasses, or just play Druid in general. Alright, looks like you guys are going roughly on A. The vote seems to be a bit even in regards to B and S tier, so seems some of you have had the luxury of having some pretty fun games regarding to that, so S tier, B tier. But yeah, the majority of you do believe that Druid in the most part can be pretty fun. Yeah, it can be flavored to be really solid in pretty much any circumstance, and in that sense, I believe it's a good fitting perk. Alright. Let's go back here, make sure everything's working properly. Yep, alright. Complete that. Sorcerer. What am I feeling about Sorcerer? It's basically Wizard. It is Wizard, but what makes it interesting? The fact that meta magic exists. You can flavor your magic any way that you want to. Touch spell, you can make the touch spell go out of a range of 30 feet. Twin spell, you can shoot 2 spells. Distance spell, I think it goes farther. Quicken spell, the spell is now a bonus action spell. Yeah, Wizard, I think... What the heck is Wizard good for? I think Wizard's good for, like, general, multi-purpose, always relevant abilities that always come up, and they're not always tied to their magic. But Sorcerer, the thing that makes Sorcerer good is that they can mix up their spells, they can throw them out, they can customize them in the moment. The fact that you never know what combinations can come out of the magic that you're throwing out is always fun. And I think a lot of people just haven't played Sorcerer as much as they may have played the other spellcasting classes, so they're not too sure exactly how good meta magic is in general because of that. But I will say, Sorcerer, I put it down for the longest time because I thought Wizard was just generally better, but I couldn't have been more wrong. When it comes to spells and spell customization, Sorcerer takes the cake. You don't even have to worry about going into different subclasses. Meta magic is given to every sorcerer, regardless. So in that sense, you can pick up any spell, and then you can just pick up a few meta magic options, and then all of those spells will be super cool. Oh yeah, I haven't even started talking about the actual subclasses. So yeah, your magic isn't, like, you didn't learn how to use your magic. Your magic was sort of given to you throughout, like, your bloodline, Christian. So Divine Soul Sorcerer is the best subclass in the game. Oh yeah, it is because you get cleric spells. And guess what cleric spells exist? I think you can get Healing Spirit, which is super strong. Draconic Sorcerer, I think you can get Fire Resistance. Fire Resistance is super strong. So many cool subclasses that come from Sorcerer. You don't have to be the nerd of the party, and Charisma is already a really good stat. So Sorcerers can also be parties' faces. They can assist with, like, conversations, dialogue, intimidation, persuasion checks. Sorcerers use Charisma as the spellcasting ability modifier, so Sorcerers can be really good in that regard. So yeah, I'm saying that I'm praising Sorcerer a lot, but the one thing that Sorcerer does not have is the fact that they don't have the consistency that some of the other spellcasters may have, which I think puts them down a little bit because of that, but in the long run, it is still worth it. Alright, so a mix between S and B. Alright, 1 second, let me actually make another poll since we have a tie in that regard. Make this one a bit quicker. Complete that. So, S and B then. S or B. This will be the final one. So you'll vote either S or B. And we'll start this one. One more vote decided. Done. Start. Alright, that should be working. This one's for the marbles, guys. Take your pick. Is it overpowered and always good, or is it mediocre and just a general decent class? Up to you guys. I can finally sit back. Let me rest my throat for a second because I have been going non-stop with these opinions. I need to make some tea, honestly. Some tea would be pretty good right now. Alright, you guys got 15 seconds. Well, I get a good stretch out. Right, looks like B's winning, but it's still pretty close. Ends. Final conclusion. B. Alright, B it is. So yeah, overall, a decent spellcasting class. Nothing more to say then, nothing less. Community, you guys agree? So yeah. It is pretty close with S, however, too, so. I guess it's either, it can be really good on occasion if you know how to use it, but for the most part, it's pretty average in that regard. Next one up. Bam. Rogue. What do I think about Rogue? It's one of my favorite classes in D&D history. Next to Wizard, which is also the last one in this tier list that we're going to be doing. Sneak attack, amazing. Love rolling tons of dice on the table, tons of damage. Assassin, crits at the start of combat if you can get a surprise round. If your party knows how to sort of move themselves around combat, sort of let the rogue go in and get that surprise round, sort of stealth in the shadows, shoot out their bow, get a crit on the boss, perhaps even take him out in a single round of combat. Super cool, super epic. The less time a combat takes to get through, the better, because I know the majority of people who like watching D&D content on YouTube, well, a big portion of why D&D content works on YouTube is because the combats are skipped. And if you're a rogue, you have expertise, so you can talk your way out of combats. And if you really need to, you have your sneak attack and your blades, so you can go ahead and end a combat quickly with your insane damage output. Stealthing in the shadows, something that a rogue is really good at because they tend to wear light armors. Pickpocketing skills, you always expect the bard to be doing that. No, not the bard, the rogue, but other classes can do it. It doesn't make the rogue specifically designed for it, but the mere fact that a rogue requires, I think, light finesse, no, light, yeah, it's just light weapons. Light weapons to dual wield. And, yeah, in that regard, I think most light weapons require dexterity, which makes it so that just in general, the rogue is better off for going into those dexterity-based skill checks. So sleight of hand checks, acrobatics checks, and stuff like that. It works better with the rogue. While with the bard, it's more like charisma checks and stuff like that, because it works with their spellcasting modifier, blah, 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 whatever. You don't have to worry. Anyway, the main fact that I'm trying to get at, rogue is just generally solid. You can get sneak attack off pretty much whenever you want. The limitations of when you can get a sneak attack are so open-ended that, for the most part, pretty much half the enemies that are ever in combat are in sneak attack mode. Like, you can go ahead and attack them and you will get sneak attack. Doesn't matter. If you're stealthing and your stealth is high, you will always have sneak attack. Eventually, you can use your bonus action to dash, disengage, and hide. Some of the strongest abilities in the game. Disengage so you don't have to worry about getting attacked. Hide so that you can get your sneak attack bonus if there aren't any creatures in range. You are good by yourself. You are good with a team. You are good to make some money on the side by pickpocketing and stuff like that. You are good because you have expertise as a martial class. Really, really good stuff. Now, here's the thing. A seems to have 45 and S has 44. So you guys want A. I think in that regard, Rogue may be a little more situational when it comes to things than Bard, because Bard is a support class and Rogue is not. So yeah, in that regard, I can see why. But definitely somewhere like in between A and S tier, I can see Rogue being. And finally, last but certainly not least, we have Wizard. Now, where do I think Wizard stands on this poll? Wizard. It is good because so many people know what a wizard is. When you jump into D&D for the first time and you hear that a wizard exists in the game, you're like, oh dang, there are wizards in this game. I need to play this class and experience the wonders of magic in Dungeons and Dragons. The saddest part is that unlike video games, wizards in D&D actually require you to know how to play the game in order to enjoy them. I've heard so many people just flat out mess up how wizards work. Even now, I still don't know how wizards work, and I have been playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition for almost 3 years, and it's still a bit murky as to how a wizard's spell slots, how a wizard's multi-classing work, like for any spellcaster really, that's a bit on a murky subject, but regardless, how wizards prepare their spell slots, how they cast them, how their magic works, their subclasses, their wizard subclasses, some of the easiest to understand subclasses in the game. But that does not compare to how difficult Wizard is as a class to really enjoy. Now, this isn't a bad thing, because veteran players can always jump into Wizard and enjoy themselves at the table. It's always fun. They're underpowered until 10th level. That is not true. Wizards are still incredibly overpowered, even at lower levels of the game. It is really good. You can go ahead and use Magic Missile. Magic Missile never misses. You have Shield. Bump your armor class. Now you have almost as much armor as the rogue or the cleric. What else? Some of their spells can do a lot of damage. Downside is they don't have a whole lot of spell slots at earlier levels, so almost always will you have to worry about managing that. But yeah, later on, you have so many spell slots, you almost never have to worry about running out, which is amazing. Mage Hand is amazing, yeah. If you're going in Arcane Trickster Rogue, Mage Hand is so much cooler. But yeah, Mage Hand just basically on a wizard, super cool, super strong. I think a lot of you are voting S tier on the wizard primarily because, like, you like the name wizard and not so much what it's actually capable of. Like, yeah, the subclass features, they're cool, they're reliable, they don't have like a limitation, so you can almost always use your wizard subclass features. And in that regard, I think Wizard is better just averagely. It sits like, I think, in my opinion, the way Fighter sits. It's always relevant regardless of the situation it's in. Let me see. But yeah, in that regard, Wizard doesn't have as much customizability as the Sorcerer does. And I think in that regard, it's a little bit more of a downside. And also, one last thing. But don't quote me on this because I'm not entirely sure myself. I believe wizards in D&D have the most spells in their spell list. They're capable of knowing the most. That's not to say that sorcerer doesn't have some too, because some sorcerer subclasses give you more spells to work with. But yeah, I think wizard has the most options available when it comes to having these spells at their disposal. Also, I did forget to mention, but I think wizards, sorcerers, and I'm not too sure, but I also think bards, maybe, have access to the wish spell. If you have a good DM, then that is incredibly strong. If you have a bad DM who always likes to monkey paw your wish, then that is a bad thing. Don't get wish if you know that your DM's just gonna meme you with it. It's not good. So yeah, S tier. I would definitely agree. Wizard's one of my favorite classes in the game. I'm glad that you guys chose Rogue and Wizard to be up near the top, because I think that they're actually pretty good. They have flavor that works with most campaigns. They just generally work. So yeah, Bard, a support class. Artificer, I think it's a mix between a support and a fighter class. Cleric, support class. Wizard, definitely a support class. I think wizards, in my opinion. Most spellcasters can be considered a support class. So all of those are in S tier. Funny enough, I think Wizards of the Coast has sort of done that on purpose to make the support classes a little bit stronger than they should be. Yeah, we're done. And yeah, I think the support classes in D&D were made to be stronger than they should be, just to make sure that people don't feel like they need to be heal bots. Don't make them need to feel like they're just not useful at all. All of these classes super strong and super relevant at any time in the game. Rogue, I think it's a really good generic base stealth killer. You can get anything done with a rogue, super solid. Druid, cool. Barbarian, Paladin. I definitely agree on all of these ones too. I maybe would have put Paladin in S tier if it was up to me, but I think a few of you guys know that Paladins can be a bit situational in some regards, so yeah. In that regard, probably not as decent. Now here's the one I don't agree with. Sorcerer in B tier. This enrages me a little bit, and I think that's because maybe a lot of newbies coming to the game just don't appreciate Sorcerer as much as Wizard. Maybe they haven't read up on it as much. But yeah, the more I got into playing and learning about Sorcerer, the more I realized just how much fun it was to play over Wizard. But Wizard still has some cool flavor. Sorcerer and Wizard are constantly like beating each other over the head as to which one's superior. As to why Sorcerer is in the B tier though, a bit off-putting, but you know, you guys voted for it, so I guess that's where it belongs in the long run. Also guys, why are you still voting for things? The polls are over. There's no more polls up right now. Oh, there shouldn't be any polls open right now. What the heck? Go back. Ranger, get in there. What the heck? The formatting exploded. Stop! There we go. And fix that one up there. Bam. All right. Ranger. I love how Ranger is just so far apart from the rest of the classes. It is an entire tier. C tier? Who cares about C tier apparently? Ranger is below C tier and more. It is so far away from the rest of the competitors in the scene, who for the most part are all sitting roughly next to each other. But a Ranger is in a whole nother league of D tier. In fact, I'm curious. Wait, we need to have another tier for this. Add a row below. Let's add 2 more. C, D, E, and this will be F tier. Base Ranger is going to be F tier. And we're going to have 1 more poll, right? Rank this class. We're gonna have an E tier, and we're gonna have the F tier. Start. Alright, we got 1 more poll going. Now, I'm actually curious. Where do you guys feel Ranger belongs? Get out. Get out! Well, we're gonna put it here for now then. Alright, out of all of these, where do you guys feel like Ranger belongs in the grand scheme of things? Alright, so F tier is getting a lot of votes already. Why am I not surprised? And let's do this. So D is rarely good. F is going to be never good. Just so you guys know what we're dealing with right now. So yeah, F tier is this class never works. All right, just so you guys know, if there's a class in F tier, then there's almost no circumstances where the class is ever functionally viable. Now, just so you remember, I did say that Gloomstalker was a solid ranger choice, and it can be pretty strong. But in that regard, with all the other tiers in mind, still, where do you think that ranger belongs? All right, few votes in S. You guys are just trolling at that point. I only put ranger in the S tier because I can't bring it back down anymore for some reason. All right. Revised Ranger just kind of made Ranger worse. Yeah, because Wizards of the Coast sort of just pointed out that base Ranger was bad, and they wanted to revise it. So, yeah, it's sort of like a, what is it, a kick in the mud. Just like, hey, just so you know, Revised Ranger exists, because we didn't do a really good job at making sure that Ranger felt fun to play, and who knows? Maybe you liked going berry picking in the woods. Maybe you liked hunting for wild game in a fantasy world with dragons and zombies. Maybe you like going out and hunting ferrets and elk. I don't know. In the fantasy world, blah, blah, blah. So, we made the Revised Ranger in the hopes that it could help you guys sort of understand what's going on. And yeah, guys, this is base Ranger. We're not talking about Revised Ranger here. This is the base Ranger. I don't know too much about Revised Ranger, but I think they just took out the monotony from the class. All right. 15 seconds. Got a lot of mixed votes here now, but the majority of them, I think, understand that the class belongs in one of these lower sections. Alright, cool. It's really close between E and F. I think a good majority of you believe that Ranger has its viability on occasion, and I would agree with that. But the mere fact stands. Ranger is F tier. It is never good. I would have to disagree on that. Hey, Crit Crab, you don't know what this is, but make me S tier? Alright, I wish I could do that, actually. Can I even add new things? Yeah, that's gonna be complicated. I'll just rate S tier. Always good. Plus crabs. Cool. Oh, I spelled crabs horribly wrong. There we go. Nice. Alright, so with that in mind, all of the support classes, S tier. Some of the stronger martial classes, and druid for some reason, A tier. Fighter, along with all of the spellcasting classes, well, warlock and sorcerer, that are a little bit more specific, B tier, and monk. I would feel personally that monk would be around C tier. I think it's a little bit more specific, but it can still get the job done on occasion. D tier, nothing. C tier, nothing. Why didn't I say that? C, D, E tier, nothing. Ranger, F tier, absolutely garbage. Base Ranger, trash. You need to work with your DM to make sure that Ranger can be fun to play, because base Ranger is bad, and if you're denying it, then you are just denying the inevitable. Maybe your DM had homebrewed it so that Ranger is better than it should be, but it is not. And it will never be. As rather than going back and like fixing up the base Ranger, they made Revised Ranger. So Ranger is still in the game, and for all of eternity, players who play D&D will need to be forever cursed with the fact that they may actually accidentally make a Ranger character, and they will be underpowered and roughly irrelevant for the remainder of the game to come. Anyway, man. That's the D&D tier list. I'm actually curious now. Let me go ahead and grab our original tier list. Well, my original tier list. Just so I can see how different it was in comparison. Let's see. And I'm going to go and sort of show it off real quick. Let's see how much different it was beforehand. Alright. The D&D tier list. What the heck? All right, here is the old D&D tier list. All right, bam. How do I move this? Let's drag it onto the screen so you can see exactly how different it was. Let's see. Drag that over. Cool. So here's the old tier list, alright? Let's see what was different. Just for a little bit more fun. Ranger was in C tier. I put the Ranger in C tier. You guys originally put Ranger in D tier, but afterwards we put it in F tier because it's flat out garbage. It's flaming fire, dumpster fire. Paladin and Rogue were S tier. They were the only ones I put in S tier, but you guys put both Paladin and Rogue in A tier, and then just flat out put all the supports in S. I did the exact opposite. I put Sorcerer and Wizard in A tier, Sorcerer's down in B on your list, guys, and, what is it? And you guys put Wizard in S tier, which I'm quite surprised about. And Warlock and Monk are still in B tier, so I think you guys both agree with me on that regard for the most part. But yeah, interesting. Well, that was fun, guys. Yeah, alright, so I think we learned a valuable lesson about where all the classes stand. If you guys want to play D&D and become min-maxers, you guys know what the proper classes to play are. But don't do this if you value your Dungeon Master's sanity, so... yeah, play the character based on how you enjoy it, the flavor of all of it, and not by exactly how strong it is. Even in some circumstances, Ranger can be a fun class to enjoy, and even though you guys may think that it is never good, I believe on some very, very minor occasions, there is some hope for Ranger as a subclass. Anyway, don't want to stretch things any more than I need to. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I might cut this up and post it so that we can have a definitive, final, what is it, status on what all of the official classes are and where you guys would probably rank them, so that there isn't going to be any more debate on it. And we can end it here. So yeah, I think that's a solid place to sort of end it all up. I have an interesting stream that I have planned for tomorrow if you guys are interested in seeing it. So if you haven't already, I'll definitely encourage you to subscribe. Ringing that bell is pretty much the only way that you can get notified for stuff like this. So if you enjoyed hanging out, voting for all of these classes and taking part in the community, then I would definitely recommend it. You know, nothing major, but yeah, I definitely suggest it. Alright guys, so that'll be pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed the stream for today, guys. I'm definitely going to try to plan more streams out later on. Regardless of what it is, it'll definitely be fun, so hopefully you all stick around. Alright, thank you all for helping with this video, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Alright, peace everyone.